Hello, hello, hello. Okay, it's another beautiful Saturday, beautiful edition of our wonderful event, Luminous. Today we're looking at the future of work, right? And we're going to be exploring various models when it comes to the future of work. But I'm never alone. It's never good for a man to be alone. I have some wonderful people that they're going to join us, and going to be inviting my wonderful uh, folks for this particular session. Okay, um, just give me a second. Yeah, yes. Okay, I've added Adebisi. Yes, Adebisi. Okay, and me. Okay. All right. Are you able to join? Okay. Araba. What's happening? Okay, I hope. Yeah, I think. Yes. Okay. Oh, and you guys just came in together at the same time. Bam.
Yep.
Yes.
That is good. You're very welcome. Is good to see your lovely faces. And of course, my own name is Imole Ashogbon, so I think I'm going to be giving our wonderful joiners today the opportunity to meet you. These two people are wonderful people to me in many ways. I won't be going into the nitty gritty, the story, but some are deeper than some. But I have two very solid professionals here today. We're going to be exploring this subject, and I think I'm going to start with BC Adebisi. So Adebisi, of course, an HR professional. She wears many hats, and she's also a global HR professional. In fact, from speaking from Netherlands right now. But let me move it to you. Please introduce yourself, and let's meet you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Imole, for having me on this fireside chat. And
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. My voice had a hectic
Yeah.
week,
Yeah.
but I'll do my best to contribute to the conversation. My
Yes.
name is Adebisi, and I've been in the HR profession for more than 15 years,
Uh-huh.
and currently now in the global role as employee and labor relations specialist,
Yeah.
responsible for all employee relations and strategy and policies across the globe in my company, AP Monomers, at the moment. So
Okay.
I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to contributing to this conversation.
Um,
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, BC, the HR madam. All right, the chief himself, my wonderful guy. I don't understand the mystery behind the name, Abiodun, that you're using on your Instagram. Maybe you tell us, but Abiodun,
Yeah,
you're welcome. Please
yeah,
just go ahead.
yeah. Absolutely. Happy to join you. Can you hear me though?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't. I definitely couldn't miss the session. I had a dental implant yesterday, but I told the mother that I'll try to see if I can. So, excuse me if I'm talking a bit funny. I can't really open my mouth so much, but yeah, about the name, it's just an interesting one. It's the one I use it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really coined from just my name. Everyone calls, a lot of folks call folks, people that are known as Abiodun Abe. And then it's just a tweak of the spelling. And then interestingly, I'd watched this movie a long time ago, Frank Lucas. Denzel Washington is someone that I like. I mean, he's one of the best artists. I mean, one of the best actors that I really like. And I did watch that movie, and I was just thrilled by his personality. And for whatever reason, I think I was speaking with a friend back then. I was like, why don't you try Abe Lucas? And I'm like, okay, that seems to kind of make a good sound. So, yeah, and it's been years now. But just speaking about myself, I've had a very interesting career so far. Um, I have a finance background. I'm a CPA, a chartered professional accountant. However, I work in the technology space right now. And the only reason why is just because I love technology so much. And I believe in the ability to leverage technology to solve a lot of problems. And so I'm very much interested in that space. Just a quick plug for folks who will be watching this. When you've got some time, just check out www.eventpaddy.com. It's a platform that actually is trying to get Afrocentric gathering and get Afrocentric people together and create that community. So yeah, feel free to check out the platform and reach out when you can.
That's good. It's a good plug. I endorse the plug. I'm going to be talking about it also from time to time. But it's good to have you both here. And the subject we're looking at really is the future of work, right? In contextual terms, would it really be the future of work or even the work now? Okay,
I think it's the work now.
it's the work now,
Yes.
and I can't forget January 2021. I can't forget January 2021. I was working in the airport then, and I was working on some projects, and I was still having a conversation with my boss at the time and saying, because of the policies and the project I was working on, I think it would be better to work once a day from home and the rest days in the office. And my boss was quite open to the idea because she understood it, but she couldn't get a full approval from the director, right? Like, work from home. It was a bit, where's a back and forth. Then, they said, okay, yeah, just for this time, work once a day, once in a week. After a while, moved to once in 2 weeks. And for other people, we'll see. We're still back and forth. And then COVID hits. And some 2-3 weeks later, everybody was working from home. The narrative had fully changed, right? Because something happened. And as we know it, the world has since changed significantly since then. So we're looking at this, from this angle. What do you foresee as the balance between these dimensions? Remote work, hybrid work, I think I'd like to just start from BC's perspective as an HR person. And I know you've worked in different dimensions and of course in different, what do you foresee to be the future of this? Or what do you foresee to be a reality that is going to stay and is going to stick?
Thank you, Imole. And let me start by saying it is here to stay, and it has started. Funny enough, I thought I was not going to be. Sometime last year, I also had to be in the remote, to work remotely. So I understood the context, and it's something I also was. In fact, it wasn't planned, but I just had to do it. So how is it going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? I can tell you, employees will start asking for it. So it's not like, it's going to be like, this is what I want my contracts to be. And the flexibility, remote work will be like a standard. So if we are going to be targeting some people in the workspace, that is actually going to be like the selling point. This is how my contract is going to be. Work arrangements are going to be customized because it's already happening now. You know that. So it's not going to be like the normal where we say 5 days, 2 weekends, not anymore. So I'm seeing that being a standard right now where organizations are going to be telling people to even customize their work arrangements. And this is how we want to work, but this is what we think you can also do if you really want to work with us. So those are the major things. And of course, more technology is also coming now. So it's going to enable more of that. So next 5 to 10 years, Imole, is going to be customized work arrangements. That's what
customized work arrangements.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a term I think what's publicizing, customized work arrangements. So, better let's go to you. You are in the tech space, and for instance, I know some of the things you're dealing with has some premise around this, enabling such. But generally, as an employee or as a tech professional, how do you interpret this whole situation? Do you think we'll ever come to a point where people, it won't even be customized? It will now be the norm,
Yeah.
right? Where we can work from home. What's your perspective to this? Let me start from there.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you've asked this question. I think, forward-looking organizations have approached this in a very different way. And I was lucky enough to work in a global organization some years back, actual in the name Novartis. And at the time, this was way before COVID. We had already started doing hybrid work. It was new. So when
Across board,
across
or just some specific.
globally, there was already hybrid work. I mean, at the time I was still in Nigeria, I was working a day at home, and I was only going to work 4 days in a week. So, I mean, obviously, I was coming from an environment where you had to be at work, you couldn't do anything from home. And then I transitioned to this space where I was working remote, hybrid. And it was just like, hey, this is how forward-looking organizations should act. And so when we transitioned into COVID, it was seamless. And just so you know, we used to run this activity called a disaster continuity sort of effort, where a week in a year, everyone works from home. We just shut down, assuming that, worst case scenario, there's maybe fire in the building and things like that, or whatever happens. We used to actually simulate that every year before COVID.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. Everyone worked from home. Of course, we'll probably get to that later, but we were equipped with the necessary tools to be able to do that. And so as part of our disaster continuity sort of effort, those things were there. So for us, it wasn't difficult at all to transition into that space when COVID hit, right? And so I think really is to kind of step back, especially, and I probably hold leadership teams of different organizations right now to kind of step back and look beyond the current state and say, what does work look like? Or what should work actually look like in the future?
Okay, that's interesting. And really, forward-thinking global organizations actually have real plans and strategies. So it becoming a norm when COVID happened, I think met some organization by surprise because they were not prepared. Anime says once a week. Yeah, once a week is really surprising that even
Yeah,
before COVID,
this is before
that is.
COVID. Every time I told folks that I work from home, and this was I think I chose Thursdays because you could choose between Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and so I always was home on Thursday, working from home. My internet was connected, and my wife would always be like, "You're at home," She was almost like, and I'm like, "Hey, just go to work. I'm working at home. Let me just relax," And it was really surprising to a lot of folks that at that
Yeah,
time, and this was probably 2018 or 2019,
yeah,
and so it's, as I said, it's really behoves on leadership of different companies
yeah.
to start to think about what work should look like and how to encourage effective productivity from the
Okay.
employees.
So let's look at it this way, and I want to structure this part of this conversation from what are the real challenges organizations have, and basically I'd like you to chime into to this of what is the real deterrence. I know my own experience. I know, for instance, I worked in the manufacturing sector,
Yeah.
and the biggest people that made the most of the noise and made the most of the complaints were the directors of the operations guys, because their narrative is, my boys are coming to work every day. You guys cannot, even though they know you could effectively do your work without. And then we also have different narratives around. We've spent so much on facility and blah blah blah. But from your lens, I know your experience is a bit similar. You work in a global organizations. You have various pots of employees in different dimensions. How do you see this, or what do you think is the biggest challenge leaders have to navigate this?
Okay, so um, I kind of envy Abiodun a bit when he said they
Yes,
doing this
it's
before
enviable.
COVID.
Yes.
But I think the one thing we also need to look at is this doesn't work for every organ. I happen to be, I've only worked in most maybe almost all through my career in essential service company in Nigeria. And right now I'm also working in the transportation and logistics industry where we predominantly into shipping and container and logistics, right? So I think the first major challenge for organization is, for most organization, is the kind of service they provide.
Okay.
So while we know that this is now the new norm, we also need to, there's need to segment most of the roles. So like when he was saying it, in my mind, I'm just like, okay, I'm in HR. How do we shut down a whole day and say people have to not work, right? So the first thing will be what works for each company and how do we segment roles. So during COVID, I was actually having to go to work because I was in the electricity distribution company in Nigeria, and there was no way we could shut down at that time. So, and I was still in HR, so we had to be in the office, make sure the people are in the field. In fact, the government had to give us some kind of permit to be at work. So, but was it necessary for everybody to be at work? No. So I think right now, the first thing will be, let these roles be segmented. Which are the roles that we can't do without, but we can't move our containers remotely, right? They have to be in the office. Then what works for each person? Because when you now have a mix of roles like that in an organization, there's need for a balance. And that's another challenge, will be, what are the policies that can cut across all of these roles? So I'm speaking from my own lens. I haven't worked in a place where we can't go fully remote or hybrid, but we can have a mix of all this by segmenting the roles and having each other. So what are the policies we can have, or what are the tools we can use to make sure someone who has to come to work fully on site, someone who has to work can work remotely, and the other person who is hybrid, they all have a sense of belonging in the same place. I think those are the challenges. Then, we're in the global space now. So what are the labor or acts across borders too? So I'm in a space right now where, before we even take certain decisions, we have to think, okay, what does that say in this place? How does their law or their act interpret remote work? What are the tax implications? So those are the challenges right now, because it's easy to say we all want to work remotely, but companies need to go through all of these things, know how to navigate them, and this most times can be challenging.
Yeah, I agree with you. Biodu, I see that BC has highlighted some of those policy or technical parts, and we probably will deep dive into it. But from the lens of you as a professional, not necessarily in HR, not looking at it from that side, how do you interpret this? For instance, Twitter, Reddit, some other company has declared full flexible, full hybrid work models, right? And they are working. For you who's in tech, and I know you also mentor a lot of people and you speak in different places, what lens do you think organizations need to look at this, and how best do you think this can be sustainable, especially with the new generations we're having, the Gen Zs and all of those? How do you interpret this?
Absolutely. I think maybe to that point, and really one of the challenges organizations are facing and will keep facing is the question around culture.
Okay.
I think it's a larger one, really. And if you think about it, in organizations where you have to go to work, full time, it's very easy to know who is who, how to navigate, some of the things that's happening there. You kind of just get used to how we work. But with remote or sometimes hybrid, and especially for those that even change work or started working in places during COVID, you see that culture is one thing that is kind of difficult to kind of pass through to employees that have kind of just joined. And that's really one of the big challenges that organizations have to really figure out how to solve.
Yeah.
How do you get a new employee accustomed to your culture, especially when they don't see anyone? They only work from their space. They work from home or whatever that is.
Yes.
That's really where I think there's a fundamental problem, and maybe question why a lot of organizations are potentially moving back to work, because the question around culture and how do we get these people feel among, because you can see that it's really very different when you work with peers. Potentially, if it's an open floor space, you're in a cubicle, you can easily just move to someone in the other department. Instead of having to send a quick chat, you can just go and ask them, hey, what's going on? I need this file. Are you able to get this done? Or maybe just coming from the washroom and then someone just stops you. Hey, I sent you this email yesterday. Are you able to just, and you see how, people like to work, and you see how things are done generally. You see the mannerisms, the unspoken words.
Okay.
I think that is one of the issues that organizations are really facing. And in my mind, I think one of the ways to really resolve this, especially in the world that we're in right now, is around over communicating.
Okay.
Over communicating. And I think that's very important. I think some things are almost left to, well, but this is how we should do it when we used to work in office. But right now, especially in the hybrid world, over communicating is very essential. I'll say something very subtly, and if you think about it, it's just, and this is just my point of view.
Yeah.
In certain places before now, if it's a holiday, potentially on a Friday or a Monday, everyone knows, because you're in the office, people are chatting about it too. I'm not going to be here. Everyone just knows that it's going to be a holiday. So everywhere is going to be shut down potentially for the weekend. Think about it, even when I was in Nigeria, this was probably the case, and also here. But in the remote world right now, you find that, especially for some folks that, myself, I'm not so new in the environment anyways, but I kind of have to figure out what day of the month or what day is holiday. Everyone just assumes that everyone knows. Now, something like that is something that should be shared. Potentially just earlier in the week to say, hey, there's going to be a holiday here, or potentially have it even on the intranet, on a shared workspace to say, these are the list of, days where we're going to shut down for holiday or whatever that is, maybe statutory or non-statutory holidays. But my point really is over communicating.
Okay.
That's one way to help foster culture in this new environment that we find ourselves.
Interesting. So I like the way that you brought in what you're doing is bringing in the cultural dimension. But I find that there's a lot of mix to this, right? For instance, 51% of working professionals favor fully remote jobs, while 46 prefer hybrid jobs. So you still have, and then 87% of people they want to work from home at least one day a week. So you see that it's not all, but I mean, what would you prefer? What do you think is more sustainable? And I also ask from this sense because I remember there's some talents that they told us clearly that if it's not hybrid, they can't take the work. In fact, there's certain people say remote. It has to be a remote job, fully remote. And you have managers concerned of people doing two jobs. They have managers concerns of people not working efficiently. You understand? You have those concerns. Meanwhile, during COVID, the data showed that productivity went up, even though mental health, loneliness, and all of that also went up. Right? So where's the balance here, BC?
The balance is hybrid, really, if you ask me. So, Ewa, I've been in a space where I was 100% remote, where I was technology connecting with my team across countries. And it was a struggle because, see, to Biodo's point, communication, right? It's actually mentally draining to be trying to decode what the other person is saying across using Teams or using Zoom. So, because you're trying to, when you're having conversations, you're trying to, okay, how do I have to, and especially when you're dealing with cross-cultural colleagues and stakeholders.
Yes.
So that's why I know people really want to, COVID pushed us into that space of fully remote, but looking at it for us as human beings, because we are social beings too,
yes,
and we are productive. So there was productivity. We also saw that report from, I think there was one from Gallup where people prefer that, and productivity went up, but at what cost? Because the mental health of people became lonely.
Yeah.
There was bloodlines between time off work and time you should be at work. There are emotional states of of a lot of people was really bad. So I think the option to me is, I would prefer, because I've been there and I know how it was to really work, and now it's a different, I'm now in hybrid. I think hybrid is the way to go, because we also want employees to have good mental health, and their well-being is also important for this productivity we are talking about.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, I know some people still want to do some, about 83%, which you said, still think remote is the way to go fully. But if you look at the balance, employee well-being, mental state, productivity, cultural cohesion too, in the office, I think there's need to, I think it's more of hybrid.
Yeah, I agree with you. Abiodun talked on that. And if you're joining, please share your thoughts about share your own perspective. Like we do this is just a conversation, right? And just sharing insight. Tony says most global companies don't have the same holidays. Well, that's true. I think sometimes it's also influenced by the country.
Yeah.
In fact, in Canada, it's influenced not just by the country, is influenced by the province. Their provincial holiday is different from, is also different from
The national holiday.
Yeah, national holidays. All right. Okay. Abayi Lucas says that's correct. As the reason why it should be sent to everyone so that they are aware. Yes. So this says remote work has been amazing for my mental health. I like this. Okay, I cope by taking walks during my lunch, and my work-life balance is also amazing. Wow. So this is his own very personal subjective experience. Some of us have added weight in the days of this remote work. Some of us, I mean, I don't know. What's your own take to it? How has COVID work, impacted you, or how do you see it? How do you see working strictly remote or hybrid? Which one would you go for, and why?
That's an interesting question, because I've done both. And I think for me, one of the very critical things around working is relationships.
Okay. Yeah.
Very important. Now, I've taken a bit of time to step back and really, especially after you even sent this topic to me, and just really analyze what it does, what it was like, working remotely and hybrid, and even full on at work. And, one of the underpinning things around it is just how to build that relationship with colleagues to be able to get the work done. Because I think that's what we're actually aiming to get the work done in a fulfilling way that, you get fulfilled on your part, and then, of course, you're able to deliver on the work. And I find that some of the better relationships that I've built with work colleagues are actually done outside of work.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, and I'll give you a very classic example. I spent time working with a few colleagues, and this was, a bit of hybrid at some point, and then we kind of went full on 5 days a week. And, I was working with these folks, the same thing, you send email. It was just email. Of course, we chat every once in a while. But guess what? We actually spent a couple of days going to play golf, the whole day. This was about 9 a.m. to 6 a.m., just 18 holes. So basically paid the whole course. And what I knew about certain colleagues in just those activities, I had not known about that in years of working with them.
Yeah, you can't take that away.
Yeah.
Now, and then you begin to ask yourself, is it so much better to actually be in office and still act like, hey, you don't know these people that you work with.
Yeah.
You don't build that relationship. Or have a remote office, a remote sort of work arrangement where every quarter we're having on-site type of arrangement where everyone just collaborates and do stuff together.
Yeah.
Because guess what? After that encounter that I spent time knowing those people, it was easier. Not to say it was so hard, it was hard working with them. It was way more easier actually engaging and working with them, because when we even jump on a call, I know what to talk about straight up. Like, I'm asking about your cat or your dog or whatever that is, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it's really interesting how, what are we trying to achieve should really help us guide what type of decision making, because I see everyone, and there are different arguments around this, why we should maybe go back to work. There are folks saying, hey, maybe sometimes the city, in our case, on this side, the city is engaging these top leaders of companies to get people to come back to work because during lunch, they can go around confectionaries and buy stuff and encourage small businesses that also, set up maybe in the downtown area. So there are different arguments around this. But I think fundamentally, it's that relationship we're trying to encourage here so that we can get work done, right?
I agree with you. Thank you. So, basically, let me put this question to you. What are when it comes to, so we've seen people say they really want to remote, and the argument is valid for their own reasons. And somebody has told us his own mental health became better in remote work. And so you can't even argue those data, those facts. But when it comes to career development, for those, now I'm speaking from an HR or leadership perspective, for those who choose to go remote, how do we ensure career development? How do we find the balance for them? If I may ask that question that way, how do we ensure that, or how do we support them for visibility and the kind of growth? Because what Abiodun just said is very important. Those first-off one-on-one relationship and all of that is critical. But for organizations and businesses that go fully remotely, where do we get the balance, and how do we enable them?
Okay. Thank you, Imole. So I would say from two perspectives, one from the organization's perspective and the employee. So for any company that is supporting remote or hybrid structure, it should be something about performance conversation and a structured performance conversation that can thrive in that kind of arrangement. So in my company, we have something, even while I was remote, we have this program which we call, I don't want to mention the name, but it's something around continuous conversation with your line manager.
Yeah.
I know that while I was doing that, I was always in conversation with my line manager like every week. And in that week, we'll talk about, I've set my objective, we'll talk about, it will give me feedback, I will give him feedback, we'll talk about what are my expectations. Sometimes just no agenda, let's just bounce, let's just say anything as it comes. I think that was just a way for my line manager to always understand, to know where I am at the time. And we share feedback, success stories and all of that. So that is key for organizations to do, because that's the only way the person working remotely can have that sense that, okay, I'm still attached to this company. Then for the person who is going fully remote or maybe hybrid, if it's more, if the hybrid working away is more, I think it's key for them to always share their own success stories. And I'm saying this from experience as HR, right? Or as line managers. When someone is completely out, you have to take responsibility for yourself to say, okay, I am performing and this is what I'm doing, and make sure you are actively participating. And I want to say that because it's a personal thing, because I've also seen examples of people who work remotely and gradually they are becoming detached from the team, even while the managers try so much.
Oh, yes. Oh,
right?
yes.
So that's why I said two ways. Both the person, you have to share your achievements. When you get into project calls, you have to actively participate. You have to show that, because that's the only way they will know you're adding value to the company, right? Share your success. Then I think I like the perspective Abiodun mentioned around networking too.
Yeah.
For your career to grow, if you're working fully remote, you have to network, especially if you're in a global company. You have to, I'm sorry to say, but you have to just be the face of people. You want to say
Yes.
our own way, because that's the
Yes.
only way you're known. And that can be within, and I mean networking within and outside the company.
Yeah.
Because those are the things that will challenge you to also, and of course you're learning. You have to always learn whichever way learning works for you, because you need to also be on top of your game at time, especially when you're working remotely. Because I think personally that working remotely involves a lot of work from the individual side,
Yeah.
because that's how you can be known to be showing some
Value.
additions to the company. That's my thought on that.
you're,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you now. You were just on mute there for a second. Yeah, you're kind of cutting
Okay.
off just in case.
Yeah. Sorry. I think a call came in and I should have put that on airplane mode. All right. That's very, very important. So a question I want to ask, and either of you can go for this, do you think that hybrid model, is not in any way a disservice to organizations? Right? Do you think that, and I come from this angle now, so the vast majority says once a week is better, once a week at least work from home. I mean, from a data point, but we still see some level of disengagement. We still see people sometimes doing double jobs or triple jobs. We still see some of those negatives, and there's a lot of positives. For instance, for women, um, well, not for women alone. Let me retract that. I mean, you also find certain times a lot of people spend more time. They're able to handle some other things. Less travel time, less time, on the road. More time to catch up on some things and get some things done and all of that. And you also have countries like Finland, who are fully moving into 4 day a week kind of work. It's not even just about hybrid, it's becoming their norm and all of that. The organizations who are still skeptical about this model, you understand, and the reason is some of those things I mentioned earlier. How do we manage it for them? What perspective do you want to put out to let them know that, hey, working hybrid has more value than disadvantage? And then the next question to that is, how do you manage those nuances that comes with hybrid models? So that's the question in one.
I mean, I can go first. I think it's very tricky in terms of what works, and just like I was mentioned before, you work differently for different organizations,
Yes.
right? Which model works best? A lot of people have, even just gone full remote, and that's how they've set up. I think fundamentally, is what are we trying to achieve?
Okay.
What are we trying to achieve as an organization? From that lens, is potentially we want to make people feel that sense of belonging, and we want to get, for the lack of a better word, shit done.
Yeah.
So when we set out to do a project, we want to get it done. So effectiveness and efficiency. And that's what a lot of organizations are really about. And it's then to think about what is the best model that suits us to get this done. Now, it could be a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
It could be just remote,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be, you might have to be in person for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and this might just be speaking to something different, is on the individual side, one of the things that you want to do on your own side is to figure out, okay, does this organization's type of need, does it align with what you're looking out for?
Mm.
Would you prefer remote? Now, you argue that, remote or hybrid. Truth is, some people actually prefer to work in person. Like, they prefer that engagement to work in person. They want to chat with someone. Very outgoing. A lot of folks are maybe outgoing or boisterous. They want to chat with someone. They want to collaborate more.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are not as effective even working remotely. Yes, people clamor for it. There's some roles that potentially it just seems very obvious that you work better when you're remote, but some people actually prefer to actually be in person. So it's really trying to find that balance around what really works for you. Sometimes employees don't necessarily. I mean, it's not like you have too much choice. You need to get a job and you need to get paid, right? So you have to
Yes.
look for something. Maybe it doesn't matter if it's remote or flexible or whatever that is. But I think fundamentally for organizations is to figure out, this is what we want to do. How best can we achieve this? Because truth is, a lot of companies are achieving, the level of growth, even fully remote, right? They're achieving these things. And, it's very important, as I said, over communication is very, very critical. I worked with a very fantastic manager some years ago, and this was even while there was a bit of hybrid in there. I mean, as much as it was even in person, the level of over communication, till tomorrow, I would never forget that manager. Because it felt, sometimes it will seem like you're overdoing, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
But months down the line, years down the line, you will see the impact of that, because what it does is it creates, very importantly, a level of psychological safety. For individuals, which is something that is important for both hybrid and type of remote roles, because you're in meetings, you're not sure exactly when to question something. You don't even know how much to challenge something because hey, maybe it's not safe enough for you to do that.
Yeah.
You don't know what level of conversation to have with your manager. How open should you be with your manager?
Be your manager. All right.
And so you see how that gets difficult from even in person to actually remote. Because in person you could potentially read, some
Face and
unspoken words
expression.
exactly and get a sense that maybe this is not something I should be raising at this point. But guess what? It's probably harder in remote.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's to kind of look at those things and see how organizations can help provide a soft landing for individuals across board.
Okay. Very interesting. All right. Very soon we'll be rounding off, but I think this is interesting. I'd like to hear your own perspective to this, you see.
Okay, so I think where we are and the future of work right now for companies that really want to attract good talent, you just have to go hybrid or maybe give the option to go hybrid or have remote work. So, building to your point, people don't just want to get work now. People make choice and say, this is how I want to work. And I've seen that happen, really. Away from our topic, I've heard young people in this our own society who say they only want to work for companies that are committed to ESG goals.
Yes.
So, and they don't care about the money. So that's to tell you things are changing, right?
Yeah.
So
Very correct.
if you really want to attract talent right now, those companies or leaders need to start thinking work differently and how they can attract this wonderful and upcoming talents that are flooding into the market now. So that's my thought on that. Because we can't keep saying everybody has to be in every day for the years. So things are that. So that's my take.
Yeah.
And sorry, I can't remember. The second question was what?
No, let's leave
Okay.
it. Let's leave that second question. But I'm going to flip this question to you from an HR perspective. What do you think has been the biggest obstacle to hybrid or remote work that has to be dealt with or has been dealt with from an HR lens?
I would say it's inadequate structure policies around that.
Yeah.
So I think that's something when we have structured policies, when we have guidelines around this whole thing, clearly it sets expectations, it sets what the organization expects from remote workers or hybrid workers and all of that. It's going to shape that work structure we really want that would contribute even to our organizational goals. So I think that's the first thing, and that's also linked to leaders, right? Because for you to have those policies in place, the executive leadership team or the leaders of any organization needs to buy in. So both, I think, for now, are the major challenge of this work structure or work arrangements in the workplace.
Yeah, very, very true. I agree with you. Lack of clear policies. And sometimes I also think weak leadership. So Bjorn kept emphasizing communication over communication, strong leadership. You also have weak leadership where you have some managers micromanaging, because they're not well trained. And you also have these weak policies around. What are you measuring? I go back to what Bjorn said. The objectives must be very clear, right? What are we trying to achieve here? That must be clear. And how we should achieve it is also a critical part. Okay, Ms. Cholino says, ultimately, the choice should be based on what benefits both employers and employees shifting needs. Yes, I agree with you, but that may be difficult.
Yeah.
That balance may be difficult, but yes, you have a valid point. You also said you need to repeat information 6 to 9 times for people to actually hear it.
That's the over communication.
That's about communication. Okay. While I agree with that, I think one of the balance to that, or from my perspective, is I think you should also know your audience, right? You should know we have different personalities, right? Someone like me, over communication. I will overanalyze it, explain it, go different angles. But I find as I work with people from all dimensions, that you also have different people have different traits. They have different communication styles, right? And some people don't mind if you're quiet, if you don't say anything. Some of us cannot even afford it. There has to be communication. So when you're working hybrid or remote, and you are that person that you don't even like to come on camera, or if nobody comes to your space on your own, what happens?
Just go to the office.
Exactly. Just go to the office, right? So, I mean, it does different strokes for different folks. But as we begin to round off, what do you think? So, if we had this conversation 6 years ago or 7 years ago, none of us would speak like this, right? None of us would speak like this, and that tells us that. I mean, in fact, I was reading, one of my mentors says, don't have all these 10-year goals and all of that. We should all stop that rubbish. Have 1 year goals, 2 year goals, right? You can have a big picture for 5 years, but you must be nimble to it, because there are certain forces that they are powerful. You can't anticipate it,
Right.
e.g. COVID. You could not have anticipated the war in Ukraine, and you see how it disrupted, supply chain. You can't. There's certain things that you can't really, So bringing that, I like to bring all of those contexts to this question. So when you think about the future of work, what are some of the critical things, or what are some of the permutations or projections you anticipate for the next 2 or 5 years? What do you think is going to change, or what should we be looking out from? I'd like to hear from both of you's perspective. As we see things change, what should we be looking out for? What do you think will change?
Maybe I'll go for that. And it's still a very difficult one to know. I mean, to answer really, just like, you can hardly foretell what's going to happen next. But I think in answering that, one advice I just give, and I think that would really outlast any type of work form or styles that we get into. And I've spoken from an organizational lens a lot more, but maybe I'll speak now to the employee type of lens, is really networking.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I say this is, sometimes we think about networking for always, meeting, people outside of work that we kind of engage with. You meet someone new, you're just chatting. But guess what? Networking in your organization is as critical, because it applies in whatever form of work that you currently have now, or whatever it's going to be in years to come. I think we don't spend enough time engaging and networking within our organizations. Beyond our immediate team, we don't network enough. Jump on a call with someone.
The introvert does not agree with you.
No, but if you look
you're
at it,
making a valid point,
but if you
yes.
look at it, it does work. Because, a lot more times your names are mentioned in places that you have no idea. And it's someone that is outside your team that potentially seconds what good has been said of you, that is listened to.
Yeah.
And so you need to spend time as an employee to engage with people outside of your immediate workspace.
Okay.
And this I'm talking about in the same organization now. This is not even outside, because as I said, I've seen how this, and I've tried this out really. I'm a proponent of networking and meeting people and chatting. Maybe we'll probably have a different session on this one, but I think it's very fundamental. It goes a long way in helping you grow in the organization, outside of it, building work. You'll be shocked that you will send an email, you want to get a colleague, especially if you're handling projects, people that don't report to you in a matrix type of structure. You're trying to get someone to do something for you that is really dependent on you moving forward. And truth is, you can hardly do anything. You can only just manage them. But just having an extra relationship, knowing that person, knowing how many kids or pets the person has, can go a long way in affecting your own job.
Yeah.
And affecting your deliverable to your own manager.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Very, very valid points. Various dimension of future of work and what is important is interesting. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So maybe I'll answer it. I'm in HR,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So this future of work, I still think there's still more disruptions coming, because honestly, that's just when I think about it. When we look at ER and especially even the conversations in labor relations, there's still more disruption coming. So what we think is more like, we're still talking about organizations not wanting to be flexible. is, I think it's at that point is going to be more of a standard. I don't know, but we know with technology coming, now we're talking virtual reality, we're talking augmented reality or something. These things are still going. Now we're talking about every other AI generated stuff. They are going to disrupt this work, and the generation of workers coming in now can't even afford to be having all this kind of long conversation with people. They would rather just take their bags and go somewhere else. So the future of work is still this flexible, remote, hybrid is still shaping up. That's what I think. And a standard is going to come, and that standard might not even be, okay, do you want to do hybrid? It might be something way different, but in line with all of these things we're talking about. Then, you know, I also mentioned something earlier where regulations are going to also make these things the way it should be. So in Netherlands, there was this act they were proposing then to for remote work and all of that. They actually just quickly stepped it out to say you have the right to apply for remote work, but your employer has the right
subject to
subject to
employers approval.
All of these regulations will also affect it. You see all of the things going on around the world. They are going to affect most of this. So do we have it all clear or panned out as we think right now? I think no. Tax regimes are also going to affect this, because if you want to go fully remote, be in Canada while you're working in another country, these countries are looking at their taxes and how is it going to. So, but it's going to be there's going to be a standard that would also force employers to take a different route compared to what they're doing right now. So that's just what I think. But it's going to be a standard that come to work. I don't think that's every day of the year will not be like the norm anymore.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love the lens both of you came from. The other came from the relationship lens, the networking, the one engagement, and you looked at some other deeper issues, you know, around those policies. And truly, we can't take away the fact that AI is changing things, right? You know, Zoom made millions of dollars. Wacom that was almost dying, and it just changed. And you know, so many things happening right now. I like you talked about, you know, virtual realities. And you know, right now, asynchronous learning is there. I don't need to travel to Harvard to get Harvard education. Those things are shaping. So the political landscape is being shaped. Is shaping the future of work. AI is shaping the future of work. Right? Technology is shaping the future of work. Right? And so, we know that there's still more to come, like you guys have said. You know, I guess. How can we prepare? The last question I want to ask you guys before you share your perspective is, we as professionals, right, beyond whatever is happening, what's the best disposition we can take to secure this future of work, whatever it looks like for us? I'd like to start from Abiodun. In 1 minute, talk to us. You as a professional, what disposition should you take? What would work for you in this future of work that is here already?
Yeah, I think very importantly, just keep yourself up to date with technological advancements and things really happening around you. Just be very self-aware. I think it's very important. Like, you need to know what is going on, how tools are being used. I mean, you can imagine jumping on a call with someone on Teams or Zoom or even Google Meet, and the person is telling you they don't know how to share their screen, which is fair. Maybe not everyone uses it. However, you kind of walk them through, you do this, and they're still kind of struggling to share their screen, and they have a very big presentation to make. That would be disastrous.
Yes.
Now, you just need to be aware of whatever is going. AI right now has made it way more, in one way, difficult to kind of figure out, like, what is working. Like, how do you do this? Like, people are making videos just with a prompt.
Yes.
And now some people don't even know
that
what ChatGPT is.
And they spend 2 days.
Some people have, I mean, you'd be shocked that if you tell someone, have you used ChatGPT before? They'll be like, what does that do? It's that wild. And so really the fundamental is you need to be up to speed with things happening around you.
Yeah.
you need to engage and you need to learn how work is being done now, because what is being done right now is going to be far from what is going to happen even in a year's time. I can assure you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you so much. Adebisi.
Okay. Yes. Just like Abiodun said, stay informed,
Mm-hmm.
keep learning, and just be aware of all the trends around this way of work. So because I'm in HR and my role, I try to stay informed of all trends, even up to regulations,
Yeah.
Labor Act changes, ILO conventions that can change the workspace. So I think there's nothing too much to know at this point, and we have all this information at our fingertips online. So just keep learning and keep, like you also said, just upskill. There's no point being in a space where we cannot also, when this push comes, we cannot get into it and get running with it. So that would be my advice and personal take. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay. Abeluka says, quick plug,
Mhm.
check out eventparty.com. Yes, check out eventparty.com. I'm going to be a co-host of an events party. I'm going to share, Luminous are going to share it next week, Saturday. And of course, another masterclass is coming up. But you guys should really check Event Party. The recording will be available. We'll share it everywhere. They're also enabling things with the power of AI, and they are moving into the future of work. And they're taking another step. And I'm very proud to be associated with them. Abiodun is one of the co-founders, and you have some other great guys, Tola, Tunde, So just shout out to you guys. But more importantly, thank you guys so much for sharing perspective today, from your wisdom, from your insight. I think the future of work is here. Personally, there's no, the future is just an arrangement to give us hope. There's really no future anywhere, really. You remember that last 2 weeks, we had a conversation about these events in the future, but it's here
Yeah.
right now. When we came here, it was today. It wasn't future, it was now. So really what we have is now. That's why somebody said it's called a present,
Yeah.
and it's a gift, right? So my own to everyone is invest in yourself. Be selfish about investing in yourself, right? Make it pays off. Invest in yourself. Learn, spend money to learn something, spend money to add to your knowledge and wisdom. So they used to say that knowledge is moves around every 2 years before, but now it's no longer, is at the speed of thoughts, right? It's at the speed of thought, and things are happening. People are doing things. AI is not going to take your work, but the people who know how to use AI very well are going to take your
Yeah.
job, not
Yeah.
AI, right? So let's be very clear about that. And this narrative of remote, hybrid, and all of that, there's certain things that is not in our control. If your organization says it has to be full-time in the office, it's not your control. But what you can control is your own choices.
Yeah.
And we'll begin to see that. Once you empower yourself, once you step up, once you invest yourself, there are some job offers that they'll be begging you on that say, okay, we'll consider hybrid for you, or this flex plan is available for you. Why? Because you're a person of worth and value, right? And so that, I think that's our submission today. But again, thank you guys so much, and every of our listeners and you guys that contributed. Thank you very much. One of the things we've been very conservative about in this particular fireside chat is we've not been doing so much publicity around this. We just keep it around and stuff. But I think we're going to be doing that a bit more, and we're going to be dropping the replays here because these
Yeah.
conversations are rich conversations, and the quality of people we bring, they're amazing. Adebisi all the way from Netherlands, one of the
Mhm.
best companies, global companies in the world. I admire your company, but more importantly, I admire you, and I have a lot of respect for you. Thank you so much for showing up today. See, these two
Thank
people, both of them had different experiences and they still showed up. BC traveled to an African country recently, came back with this thing. You can hear her voice. This is my
Mhm.
wonderful friend, had a surgery yesterday, right? And he still showed up today. That's a lot of commitment. And I really love you from my heart and I appreciate you. Thank you
thank
so much for
Thank
doing
you.
your part.
thank
You
you.
you guys are amazing. Thank you, thank you.
Thank
Thank you for your kind words.
yeah.
Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you. Do you have any last words to say? You could.
I,
No, thank you. And Abiodun, nice to meet
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Hope you get better soon.
same
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you. For me, it's just, thank you for the inviting. I couldn't definitely miss the session. I'm actually just heading out shortly here, but
Yes.
happy to connect here.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll be having more of these sessions. I think we're potentially having one next weekend, and we'll be sharing that to everyone too.
All right. Take care.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes. Bye. Okay.